And we are now streaming. All right. Hello, everybody. So good to be on you here. This is the last live stream, to my knowledge, for the Unconventional Life Madagascar Speaker Series. So we are hosting an incredible event December 1st through the 5th on a private island in Madagascar. And Ronja, Sebastian, who I've got here with us, is the I believe fifth, maybe sixth speaker that we've had the privilege of having on and really sharing what's coming up in Madagascar, but particularly what's alive right now. And there is such a big current that has been moving through. I know for me personally, for you as well, for many of us that are tuning in and to really start to look at some of that stuff. So today's live stream, we've got a lot of stuff in store. Ronja, anything you want to share about what is to come and really the inspiration for unconditional trust and this surrendered living and where this inspiration came from for this particular topic?
Thank you, Jules. Thank you. I love that. And so when Jules and I were tuning in, and this was very, as most of our creations, a very kind of spontaneous, just inspiration downloads had come. We're like, hey, let's get on a call and share something. And then the question was, what are we going to share about? And I was dropping in and feeling into where can we be of the most service and how can we be a transmission for something that's going to be of deep, deep value for all of you. And there's something here around sometimes we can get so lost as creators and as entrepreneurs and as business owners in what is the next strategy and what is the next thing and what do I need to do and what is the next tactic that I need to employ to take my business to the next level. And within that, there can be this huge sense of contraction that comes up, that when we go into the mind and into strategy and into how can I get, or how can I manipulate the people, or how can I get them to buy my stuff, there's this contraction that can happen within us. And that contraction that comes from a space of ultimately being disconnected from life and being disconnected from a deeper source of intelligence and wisdom and love. And so there's something here around where are we coming from and where are we living from? And something that I have been witnessing in Jules and that I feel is such a big part of her transmission is this space of connected living, is this space of unconditional trust in life. And for myself as well, those of you who don't know me from before, but those of you who do know me, like if you knew me, then you would know that I have been through an incredible amount of adventures and trauma and challenges and intense experiences. And all of it for me has been an invitation into a deeper surrender and a deeper trust in life. And just feeling into the quality of, as you move through life, whether it's you are in your business creation, or you're about to go on a first date with someone, or you're about to go on a Facebook Live or on a Zoom call, and there's a sense of you better give something really valuable right now or else, or you better get the person to like you so that you can get a second date and maybe you can get the love that you think you want, or that we can either come from a place of contraction and disconnection and a feeling of things might go wrong, and I better make sure that things happen in the right way. I better make sure that I do what I can to manipulate reality or have things happen in a certain way so that I can feel good or so that I can feel safe.
Yeah.
Or we can be in a space of just trust and connection. And there's a distinction here between what we can call positive thinking, which positive thinking is the sense of, oh, I believe it's going to work out in this way, or I think I can make this happen, or it's going to go this way, or you say your affirmations in the mirror and it's like, I can do this. And it's almost like you're trying to convince yourself or convince reality that things are in a certain way. And that is what we in this context call positive thinking. Now contrast that with deep trust. Deep, deep trust. The deep trust is not saying that things are going to work out in this way. But deep trust is saying, I know that no matter how things work out, I'll be okay. No
Yeah.
matter how things work out, no matter what happens, it is the perfect unfolding of life. No matter what I say, or if I fuck up on the date, or if I mess up on the thing, or if I say something that is, I trust that somehow that is life unfolding perfectly.
Yeah. It's so fitting. I literally am looking at some of the comments, and feel free for those that are on the Zoom to put the comments there. But even on Facebook, I was just speaking with someone who's actually coming now to Madagascar, and what was coming up in her process of registration was this exact concept of this trust and actually saying yes. And I think what ends up happening is when you start living in this new intelligence, tuning into the greater intelligence, it's a new orientation point to what historically and predictably has been the measures of how I make decisions, what logically makes sense, what's this next thing I need to go after, versus a deeper listening, a deeper allowing, a deeper receiving, and a deeper tuning in. And I find when you're first trying these processes on, or this intelligence on, it can feel very awkward and it can feel very uncomfortable, because you're like, but this thing says all the reasons why I shouldn't. Yet if I really tune in and really allow, here's what actually desire, and here's where pleasure, and here's where truth can emerge. And so I'm curious, Rania, how have you navigated this in your own experience? And really, for those that are tuning in, if there's something particularly in your life right now that you find yourself at this intersection point of, oh, I want to, I would like to, yet here's all the reasons why I can't, how anyone hearing this might be able to work with their own intersection point.
Totally. Thank you. And so for all of you who are here right now, you can drop in and tune into, how is this relevant for you in your own life right now? It's just something that you want to do, and you feel that inspiration and that forward movement towards whatever that thing is. Maybe it's coming to Unconventional Life Madagascar, or maybe it's like going on that first date, or maybe it's creating your business. There's something where life is wanting to happen through you, inspiration is wanting to come through you, and you're in that space where you can either feel the trust and go for it, or you can stay in the contraction or believe in the contraction, and then the mind can come up with all the reasons for why it's a sucky idea and you shouldn't even try, and then basically you stay small and nothing happens. And so whatever that is for you, what is that something that is calling you? And so step one is to really tuning in. And this, by the way, when I say step one, this is not a pre-created step 1, 2, 3. This is how it's coming through in this moment as Jules is asking the question. Step one for now is tuning into, what is that something that calls you, whether it's the calling to go somewhere, to travel somewhere, to go for a course or a retreat or a world traveling adventure, or something that is wanting to come through you, something that is wanting to emerge, a creation. Maybe it's a book that you want to write, or an album you want to put out, or poetry, or an online course, or a crazy like onesie party adventure production company, or something like that. So feeling into what that is for you. And then notice the different levels of your being that are online, that are active when you tune into that. And so, first of all, there might be the mind or the thought that is saying, oh, but what if I screw up? What if I try and it doesn't work out? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? So noticing whatever the mind is saying, and also knowing that if there is a mind activity that is saying, what if this, what if this, what if this, just know that that is basically a functional mind, because the mind is part of this whole mind-body construct that is trying to keep you safe and keep you in survival, which very often means stay where you are, stay safe, because this is known. And so a functional mind will calculate and let you know all of the things that are could go wrong rather. So that's like, okay, it's doing its job. So noticing just whatever the mind is saying. And then notice that if you actually drop deeper, and some people really come to this place, like Jules, where you begin to really live from this place. But even if you're feeling like you're in your mind most of the time, if you just drop a layer deeper, or drop an octave deeper into your body and into your being, most likely there is a deeper part of you that has a deeper knowing. that is not like the ripples of the surface of the mind that is saying everything that could go wrong, but there's a deeper knowing within you of, I trust that this is actually true inspiration coming through. I can feel the aliveness in this. I trust that I will be okay because I've always been okay, because I'm still here. There's a deeper knowing, and people will often say, like, oh, my mind is saying this. And then deep down, I know. And so dropping deeper into that place within you that knows. And so when it comes to accessing that space, the way I like to see it is that when you tune into who you are, there is a part of you that is what we can call your personality, or that is part of, so what some might call the ego, whatever name you want to give the part that is part of the whole survival mechanism and that believes itself to be separate from rest of life. And then there's a part of you that is connection itself. There's a part of you that is a space of deeper awareness. There's a part of you, an aspect to your being, that is the space that is noticing all of these thoughts and emotions and ideas coming up, as well as disappearing. And that part of you is the part of you that can never lack anything. It's the part of you that is literally just intelligence and abundance itself. And that aspect of your being is simply rested in trust, is simply rested in abundance. And so when you are rested in and as that, or when you are in alignment with that deeper part of you, you can feel that as a quality of openness. You can feel that as a quality of alignment. You can feel that as a quality of relaxation. And when you are in the part of you that believes itself to be separate, you can feel that as a quality of contraction. And that contraction is an indication that you are right now believing in something that is simply not true, that is out of alignment with truth. And so when you feel contracted, that is an indication that there is a possibility here for you to drop into something deeper. And the access point to this is not by what we, like we referred to in the beginning, what we would call positive thinking, where you were like, I believe I can do it. I think I can. I think I can. And there's nothing wrong with that, because of course that's maybe a, like, I think I can and I believe I can do it is maybe more expensive than I suck and I'm going to fail no matter what. However, rather than positive thinking, coming back into what is already here, noticing in this moment what is true right now. So your mind is saying all these things. What is true right now is that you're here, your heart is beating, you're on a planet that's shooting through space. There's a solar system here. You know, no matter like how, if we, I don't know if we have any flat earth theorists on the call, you know, you can figure out your own model for this, but I'm going to go with the spinning of the vortex. We're here with planet Earth rotating through around its axis, spinning through the sun traveling through the galaxy, this entire universe spinning in perfection. There is trillions of cells in your body communicating in perfect harmony right now. There is intelligence within you. There is a part of you that was here before you were born. There's a part of you that is here right now that will be here when your body falls away and goes back to the earth. Right now, you are life itself. Right now, you are intelligence itself. Right now, simply through being on this call, you are exactly where you need to be. Right now, all of this is what is happening already. And so rather than positive thinking, which is coming from things should be different than they are right now, coming into what do I know to be true, and connecting with this moment. And when you relax into this moment, then you notice that you are already taken care of. You are already taken care of by the same intelligence that spins the planets and has all the trillions of cells communicate. That you are already taken care of this. You are already part of and connected to this love and this intelligence. And not just connected to this, but you are this.
Yeah.
And so it's about dropping into a deeper state of presence in this moment, from which you suddenly have access to an infinite amount more intelligence and inspiration than if you're in the 2% of the mind.
Yeah, so, so good. And I love what you said about what do I know to be true right now? And when we think back to this concept of trust, and one of the ways that I navigated, or, even the philosophy of unconventional life, it's so often to want to know for sure, 1 through 10. But often I find in terms of the steps that they get revealed to us in the present moment experience. And just asking myself the question, I don't know everything, but what do I know to be true right now? Well, what do I know to be true right now? What do I know to be true right now? That dialogue in so many ways becomes a way to equip ourselves. And also, when we get into these fork in the road moments, as we call them, it gives us the ability, when life doesn't go the way that we want it to, or we have an idea or an expectation of how something should be. Either I don't want to play because what if I'm disappointed and let down? Or what if I really go after the thing that I want and it still doesn't go, the way that I want? Then how do I interact with the unknown, the uncertainty of life, which in so many ways is around us all the time? And in my own experience, I find becoming a master at living and thriving and creating in the unknown, for me, is almost the nature of the game, rather than perfecting how to work with every variable, because variables in the infinite intelligence in the quantum field are always changing. And I find the moments I get stuck to something looking a certain way, I miss out on the 10 plus, 100,000, 10,000 plus other ways or forms that it's already on its way to me. I actually can't see it because I get so fixated on a particular form or function. And so I'd love for you to speak a little bit about being in the unknown, and particularly when we come to these fork in the road moments where, and many of you might be in these right now in your life. Maybe there's something really alive, a decision, or even, something else that you've already reflected on, how you work with the unknown and uncertainty in the realm of radical trust, when inherently these two counterintuitively don't usually go together.
I love this, Jules, and I love your download as well. And let us know also in the chat, whether you're on Zoom or on Facebook, if this resonates with you as well, anything that we're sharing. And so I want to share a few principles with you all that will help you gain a deeper understanding of how this works. So let me just turn off the Wi-Fi on my other computer. There we go. Give all the connection to this call, because it just said your internet connection is unstable. I think we're back. Okay, cool. So let me know, Jules, if at any moment I drop out, but this should be a really nice and stable, fast connection. Okay, so everyone who's on the call, I want to share a few principles with you first, and then share a personal story of how this played out really recently in a really big way. And so, Jules, I love what you shared about the quantum realm. The variables are shifting in every single moment. And so if you're creating from the mind, you have access to whatever the mind knows, which is basically a record of the past, or in other words, everything that has been done before, either by you, or you're like, well, let me Google how to do that and how other people have done it. And it's cool to use those kind of things for inspiration. But the point here is that if you're operating from the mind and from thinking alone, then you basically have access to, this is what we call the 2% of your capacity, where you're like, okay, this is what I know and this is what is safe. And you only have access to such a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of reality. Now, whereas when you drop into presence and drop into awareness and drop into a space where you begin to sense the present moment, you begin to sense what is wanting to come through and emerge, you get access to infinite intelligence, infinite sources of inspiration, and you get access to the infinite amount of things that have never been done before. And this is where you drop into that space of connecting into what is possible. And now you might be asking, well, okay, cool. So, well, how do I actually do this? And so the cool thing about this is that this infinite intelligence speaks to you through inspiration, intuition, expansion, and what we call the fuck yes. And so if you go to the Unconventional Life website, then you'll see that it says something around we curate on the mutual fuck yes, and it's about creating your fuck yes life. And that feeling, the fuck yes. And guys, if you're offended by the F word, then maybe you can replace it, or you can edit the video and put in a little beep afterwards or something. But we're not here to offend, but really the word, the fuck yes, is really that when it's not like, oh yeah, that sounds good, but it's like, ah, yes, and there's so much aliveness in there. And so when you feel this sense of expansion, and so first of all, you access this by dropping into the moment and feeling the presence that is already here. It's not from the mind, but it's really just feeling what is already here. And when you begin to feel your way through life, you have access to so much more than when you just operate from the mind. And when you begin to trust this inspiration more than you trust your mind. And so there's this inspiration to go somewhere, this inspiration to reach out to this person, or to walk up to that cute person on the other side of the room. When you trust that aliveness that you feel and you act on it, then your life will begin to open up in such magical ways that you can't even imagine, from a place of, well, how do I get from point A to point B? It's like, real, this is how you tune into where the aliveness is. And the perks, you could say, that come with this is that you begin to live in what we call quantum flow and accelerated reality. And this is when you begin to tap into a state of being that is unbound by normal linear reality. Normal linear reality says that, okay, you start a business and then you Google how to do the things and you write a business proposal and then you email a bunch of people and you try to go that route. Now, non-linear reality creation and quantum flow says, where do I feel called to go? Who do I feel called to hang out with? Where do I feel that inspiration and liveness? You might be like, oh, I don't have time to go to Unconventional Life because I need to be working on my business. But actually your intuition is like, well, actually we go there and then we meet the right people so that we can shortcut 10 years of being alone in front of my computer trying to like figure things out. And so this is how you basically tune into this inspiration and the aliveness. And the last thing I want to share here is this, just something that I've realized so deeply recently, is that when we are asking, should I do this or should I do this? We are asking it because we have come up to a place within ourselves where our inner guidance is loud and clear. Our inner guidance already knows. You already know that you feel, I'm getting goosebumps, you already know that you feel lit up and activated by this possibility. No matter what it is, you feel lit up by, I want to write a book. I want to create an online course. I'm going to go on top of this mountain, or on top of this building, and record this video where I just sing, or whatever it is. You feel this impulse and this aliveness, and you already know. And then what happens is that you come up against a part of your mind that says it's not possible, or what if this something happens, any version of a contracted thought that comes up. And you go to the mind when your body and your soul and your deeper infinite intelligence guidance already knows, and you go into the mind to try to justify your way into a no when your body already knows that it's a fuck yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's expressed clearly that it's like you feel the fuck yes, and then there's the idea that it's not possible, which is basically a lack-based idea, and if it feels contracted, is an indication that on some level it just isn't true. Because when you're in truth, you feel expanded. When you're in truth, you feel relaxed and open. So you feel the fuck yes in your body, and then you go to the mind to try and come up with reasons for why it's a no. And conversely, when you notice that you're giving reasons for why something is not or for why something is a good idea, then it's a signal that your body already knows that it's a no. It's like, no, I feel like that doesn't feel exciting to me at all. Like maybe somebody comes like, hey, I have a business proposal for you, or this could make you a bunch of money. And you're like, no, and your body just goes no instantly. And then your mind conversely goes into try to justify your way into a yes, where your body is like, we're not doing that. And then you're like, oh, but it makes sense. Or like, but it's good for these reasons. So take an example. It's like if you're with a person and you're noticing yourself giving reasons for why it makes sense to stay with them, but it's like, oh, but at least I won't be alone for Halloween, or at least I won't be lonely for Thanksgiving, or at least I can say on my Facebook status that I'm in a relationship so people will look at me in a certain way. If you're noticing that you're giving a pros and cons list for your relationship, on some level, your soul already knows that it's not a full fuck yes, it's not a full alignment. For example, in my partnership with Gabriel, I don't need to be like, well, he holds my hand and so I look good in public. It's nothing like that. It's like being with Gabriel on this adventure through life is a fuck yes. You know, if you have a child, you're not going to be like, well, we get child support, so it makes sense to keep this person as our child. It's like, it's a fuck yes to have this person as our child, you know, like you love the person. And so if you're noticing that your mind is giving a bunch of reasons, then drop deeper into your intuition and into your body and just feel into, does it feel expansive? Does it feel contracted? Does it feel lighter? Does it feel heavier? Do I feel pulled towards? Or does it feel a bit like, yeah, it makes sense, but I'm not feeling it? And that is that access point into the deeper aliveness. And so before I continue, just want to check in with all of you who are watching. Do you resonate with this? Does this make sense? And Jules, anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got Roshni, yes, it resonates. Coney, we've got a few questions as well to answer as well. But I think if I can say this, and I love everything that you're saying, it's so relevant, like Justin as well on the Facebook comments, like the timing of it, the quantum flow piece, that this whole practice is essentially a shortcut. Like if you've ever played the game Shoots and Ladders, like it literally is a way to jump linear timelines of what's possible. Is you look at this just as you look at copywriting in your business as a skill, or you look at, if you go to the gym a lot and weightlifting, you look at it as a skill, learning to perfect the skill, the attunement of feeling and listening to aliveness, contraction, expansion, excitement, and then using that as guiding principles for making your decisions and actually having them sync up. Step one, awareness. Sometimes you have the awareness, you don't always take the action. That's okay. But step two, when you start to be in this dance of, wow, I feel aliveness, like, wow, going to an island in Madagascar with 44 people on a helicopter on the Madagascar coastline, and it's our whole island. This feels really cool. And then you like fill out the application, for example, or you take the next step and like allowing that. It's when we sync up new action with new patterns of thought and behavior, that's when these things really start to shift. And that's when you actually get to be in the stream of quantum flow and actually the generator for it. Not as in, sometimes there's times in my life where I feel like things are going in my favor and I have synchronicities and it's either feast or it's famine. And then when it's famine, something's wrong. Maybe I've lost all of my potency. Maybe like universe doesn't love me anymore or whatever it might be. But I actually do believe that perfecting this muscle of tuning in gives you the ability to be the generator, the source, such that you're doing it all the time in your life and in many areas. And part of this theme for Madagascar is around looking at upper limits. Where do we have these predictable areas where we cut off quantum flow in our life? Maybe we're such a master in the area of love and romance, and you're like, wow, I'm so in love with my partner and it's amazing. And then when it comes to business, we're like, I don't know how to ask for money for my clients, or I always get just enough. I always have just enough, but I never have more than enough. What happens there that has you stop trusting the flow of life or keeping you out of the quantum flow current? And I think if I go even another layer deeper, oftentimes people say, well, how do I know what's aliveness? How do I know what the fuck yeah is? How do I feel what's alive and what's not alive? And I think for myself, and I'll be curious to hear your take on it too, that it starts with the tuning in. And if you can't get a clear read, if you're asking yourself, well, what's alive? Usually for me, it's an indicator of a pause button, or it's a not right now, which is also just a no. And if you're contemplating a few different decisions and you can't get a clear something, then it's usually for me a time to just reflect and be like, okay, I'm just going to wait and I'm just going to hold. And I'm actually going to double down and listen deeper rather than act and make a decision because that's what conventionally I should do. I'm going to listen deeper such that I'll get more information. And if I still don't have that information by the time it's time for me to make a decision, then it's still a no. And so those principles I find are really the shortcuts of it. And want to check in with you, Ronnie, if you've got anything to add, or we can go to some of these questions here as well.
I love this so much. And I love that you're mentioning this. Well, what if I don't feel, a super clear fuck yes in the moment? And for me, it's also the space where it's like, so for example, Gabriel and I right now, we are traveling for 10 months over like a crazy number of countries, including like all over South America and the Galapagos and Costa Rica and Morocco, like we were with you in May, and all over Europe and the States, and we're about to go to obviously Madagascar next. And when we make our travel plans, sometimes it's really, really, really clear, and we're like, okay, cool, we're going here, let's book our tickets. And sometimes it's like we almost can't. It's like we're about to, but then it's like something doesn't feel quite right. And sometimes it's clear where we're like, okay, well, let's go here instead. And sometimes we just need to chill for a moment, like chill the F out and just be like, okay, well, I guess things are about to be revealed. And a question that you can ask yourself in this moment, in a moment like that, is also, what is something else that I'm not seeing here yet? What is a third possibility that I haven't seen, or what else is possible? What else am I not seeing? And so when it comes to travel plans, when we're like, are we going to this country or this country next? Maybe there's a totally different possibility that somebody's going to tell us about tomorrow. And so in moments when I'm not feeling a clear guidance in terms of like, this feels the most alive, it's a really good moment, like you say, to just chill out and just wait for a moment and just see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you get that impulse, you're like, oh, now I get why I had to just live a day. And that is different from feeling the yes and feeling the calling and then making up a reason for why it's not a good idea and then waiting. That's a totally different thing. Because if you feel that expansion and then your mind is telling you why not, that is not what we're talking about here. It's really like when you feel the fuck yes, like don't wait, just go for it. And when you're like, I'm asking the question, it's kind of quiet. That's a great moment to just allow life to be revealed and ask those opening questions of what else is possible? What else am I not seeing here?
Yeah. And to echo off that, just a little bit further, the quantum field is moving at such an accelerated rate. I mean, when you are not bound by physical form, the rate of which it moves, it's literally infinite. The realm, the combinations, it's infinite. And we are literally, human beings. We are beings in physical form. And so there is naturally, inherently, a lag time to the rate in which we can catch up. We will honestly, I've tuned my decision making to almost allow that feeling to happen and then let my physical body, my logical mind, and those things actually have the time to catch up. And so it's important to remember in this phase, it's like, let the quantum stream carry you at the rate. And our jobs are to be interpreters. And I think as a good interpreter, we're constantly deciphering the information that is coming, but essentially we are interpreting as channels. We're interpreting our divine gifts into the offerings, into what we create in the world. We're interpreting what we speak through what we hear and what we listen and what we allow and what we put out. And so in the interpretation, you're like dealing with two opposite, divine quantum flow energy and then human being grounded energy. And it becomes a dance of how to marry them in real time. And so I think it's so important as well. I want to go to one of the questions from Roshni. Does this mean we shouldn't visualize?
Okay, so guys, for me, Jules just went quiet in one moment. You can let us know in the chat if you can still hear both of us, because just for one moment. Okay, so it says, I am the host now. That's sweet. Okay, Rashni, so does this mean, I'll just read the question out again in case, okay, she's gone. Cool. Well, I am the host now. So what's up, everybody? So Rashni says, does this mean we shouldn't visualize things going well? When do we visualize things going well, and when do we surrender to the quantum realm? Okay, so I'm going to offer that they're actually one and the same when they are aligned. That actually visualizing or imagining something is actually tuning into the quantum realm. And what I mean by that is the way I see imagination or visualization is a quality of tuning into, because you could imagine anything. And so literally you're tuning into a field of infinite possibilities. You're tuning into a field of infinite potential realities. And you're downloading into your present moment reality a possibility from the quantum field. And so when you are worrying about something, or you're imagining something going not in an awesome way in your perception, you're basically selecting from the quantum field or from the dimension of infinite possibilities a sucky outcome. And when you are imagining or visualizing something flowing really abundantly, you're tuning into one of the infinite number of potential realities and potential timelines, and downloading into your present moment reality that experience right now. And you notice experientially as well that it's not just on the level of visualization and manifestation, but when you imagine something going really, really crappy, you can feel that experience in your body right now, even though it's not quote unquote happening. It is happening experientially for you. Conversely, when you're tuning into the feeling of being on that island and hanging out with those people, or you're tuning into the feeling of being on stage, feeling totally connected to your essence as you're speaking to these people, and them having transformations if you're speaking as a transformational speaker, for example. When you're tuning into the feeling of being on that date, or of meeting your next partner, and the quality of not just, oh, I said the right things, but the quality of the connection between you two. You're tuning into a potential reality and downloading it into your present moment reality, such that you begin to vibrate at that frequency right now and aligning with that in the quantum field, meaning that that reality begins to be brought to you mutually and magnetically. And so when you're asking, does this mean we shouldn't visualize things going well? When do we visualize things going well, and when do we surrender to the quantum realm? So first of all, when it's actually coming from a place of alignment, visualizing and surrendering are the same thing, because you're in a state of receiving that vision, you're tuning into the quantum field. Now, that is very different from the experience of visualizing from a space of more like positive thinking, or in other words, you're not trusting life and you're trying to compensate for the lack of trust in life by visualize something nice. And so you're like, oh, I feel scared and I feel like this is not going to happen. Okay, I'm just going to visualize the best thing. But you feel this contraction in your body, which is simply a beautiful invitation to drop deeper into, oh, okay, what is here right now? My heart is beating. I trust life. Whatever is true for you. And so the distinction is not so much do you visualize or not, but are you visualizing from a place of, I'm going to visualize this really hard so that this one outcome is going to happen, because I believe that if that doesn't happen, I won't be okay. Or are you visualizing from a place of, I trust life, and no matter what happens, I'm on the journey and I'm co-creating with life and things are always working out for me. And hey, this reality feels fun. Let me tune in with that and jam with that for a bit and visualize with that.
Yeah, so good. I want to add on that with this other question, which really comes to, is it practical to follow our intuition? Which I think in a lot of ways of what you're saying, trusting life isn't always a convenient thing. And even the nature of, is it practical to follow intuition? Intuition and practicality, they're not usually, they go hand in hand. And when I first started Unconventional Life, it was born out of a near-death experience. I had a wakeboarding accident back in 2015, and it really launched me working with the UN and being invited to go to Forbes and start this podcast. And it was from a dream that I had 8 months into this co-creative stage with my intuition, that I saw 30 people gathering, and the words Bali came out of my mouth. And it was a vision for a live event. And I remember I rolled over to my boyfriend and I was like, babe, I just had this dream. And I was like, what do I do with this? And at the time I was running this digital marketing agency, and I was so sure of like how things were. But if I really told the truth, a layer deeper, there was more that I was wanting. And I think a lot of us resonate with this. From the outside, things can look pretty good. People might even tell you, like, you should be grateful for what you have. Or you might even tell yourself, why do I want to rock the boat? Yet inside, there's this feeling that says, I want more. And even when it comes to how do I make these decisions, I find when the urgency dial, when the pain becomes greater to not make the decision versus the cost of then just staying where you are, when that shifts, becomes a greater cost to not make the decision, that's when it's time to act. That's when it's time, and only you know when you hit that threshold. The cost of not acting is the cost of taking action and seeing what happens. And so I sat with this dream for 3 weeks, and finally I was like, said to a friend of mine, I was like, I guess I'm going to create this live event. And literally with no knowledge, no expertise, no list, created the first Unconventional Life event and sold it out in 7 weeks in Bali back in 2016. And little would I have imagined that on day 5 of that event, it would be the first time in my life where I got to bring all areas of my self-expression, all of my passions, all of my gifts to the table at the same time in the same place. I got to strum my ukulele and play music. I got to teach yoga. I got to jam on business. I got to talk about relationships. I got to be with amazing people. And it was from that place that I was like, I don't know how I got here. I don't know when, where, or how much, but if you want to do this again, give me a deposit. And 30% of people started handing me money, and I had to figure out how to take payment. And it was like, I guess we're onto something. And never would I have imagined 4 years later that we would have done these exotic events for entrepreneurs and artists and creators all over the world. Inc. would have ranked us as a top event for entrepreneurs. All of these things would have emerged from the simple ability of trusting life, trusting intuition, despite the fact that it doesn't have a place. And here's the thing about intuition. Part of being an interpreter is that most of the time, the timeline for intuition isn't always clear, and it's definitely not convenient in the sense that we get this vision and you're like, I don't know how a live event is going to fit into my life structure. This wasn't in my plan. I forecasted the end of my year. This definitely was not in there. I was not going to Bali. There were no people. There was no international events. Yet to actually pause and step back and try on these principles, when I felt into it, man, it was expansive. Yeah, it felt like a fuck yeah. And now I would have never imagined, here we are in this live stream talking about going to Madagascar on December 1st to the 5th, all because, and I've built this global brand that's reached people 75 different countries all over the world from following that. So we can't see what we can't see. But the only way to find out is to stay in the current long enough past the point that it's uncomfortable, that we then get to finally wait for what that 3rd, 4th, 5th, or even 15th option is. And then we have choice. And here's the thing for everyone. We always have choice. All of these tools that you're learning, there's always choice in how the ways you want to apply them. And only you know, only you see. You're the one you go to bed with at night. You're the one you wake up to. You're the one who you're with in meditation. You're the one who you see in the mirror when you get out of the shower. It's only you. And we can offer all of these things, but it's your choice and your agency. And chances are, if you're here, you know there's an agency inside of you that you've hit a point of no return and you can't go back. And what you're clear on is you're not totally sure how it looks going forward, but you're also clear that what got you to this point isn't what's going to take you there. And it's kind of it can be a scary place to be, of like, well, if what I got me here, I know that that doesn't work. Well, what does? What is in this unknown territory? And that's why I think conversations like this and being around people who are embodied examples of what we believe and we envision to be possible is so important and relevant. You can't stay behind the Zoom webinar wherever you are in the world and get that out on the street in full force. And I know for myself, sometimes I can't see beyond what I can see until I literally can see a person like, whoa, you're doing exactly the thing that I want to be doing. That business, the way you're impacting people, the way people listen to you, the relationship, like if I can see it in you, then it gives me permission to see it in myself, that barrier that I have, that threshold, I can go just a little bit further. and then I can see someone else, and I can go just a little bit further. And I think that's the nature of this whole game called life, is all of us coming together in our dignity, in our sovereignty, in our humility, in our gifts, in being complementary pieces of the puzzle, such that when we come together, we get to be reflections and actually embodied hope, inspiration, permission for our missions, for what is. And that's why I think, like, you know, if you're in this phase in your life, like, you got to come to this island because I don't know why you're going to get 44 examples, but this is what shortcuts our timelines. And this is what I think is so important. And I also imagine, if you're on this live stream, is because you have a big mission and you have a big vision, and you're clear that doing it alone, maybe you've been trying to do it alone, it isn't working. The mission is too big. The life and the greater intelligence that is coming through you is too potent. And you're right, it is. And that is why actually having the ability to step out, take a leap, whether it's, you know, registering for one of these last spots for Madagascar, or even acknowledging it on this live stream and showing up in these comments, is so integral to right now. And frankly, I think the essence of trusting life. So
I love this, and I love what you share about, you know, that you are the person that you get to wake up with every morning, go to bed with every morning. Because sometimes I can see people so much, and I've definitely been in this place before, where it's like, well, when I find that partner, then I'll go on the adventure. When I find that person, then I'll go on an adventure. But are you an adventure partner for yourself? And for myself, it's like, I've been with Gabriel now for about 2.5 years, and we're on this adventure together. But also, I've been with this woman for a very long time. You know, we're going on 33 years right now. Like, me and Ronja are in a long-term relationship, and it's pretty awesome. Like, it keeps on getting better. You know, it's like, she's fun. She keeps on doing fun things. I can ride that for this lifetime. You know, the adventure keeps on expanding. She seems to be on a fun ride. Like, this is a fun adventure partner for this lifetime. And so, are you a fun adventure partner for this lifetime? And maybe you're like, oh yeah, but I want to, but you know, and then again, the mind is saying, and I love what you shared as well, Jules, about that we can't see what we can't see. And specifically, the mind having access to whatever it has learned from our experience thus far. What that means is that the mind can calculate what we have to lose, but our soul and our deeper self can intuit the infinity that we're about to gain. And that is the expansion that you're feeling. So the mind can calculate what you have to lose because it can see what you have, and it's like, oh, what if we lose that? Like, what if we can't pay rent and we lose our apartment? Great, because you're about to go on a world traveling tour where you don't even need that apartment, or whatever it is for you. It's like you can see that you're about to lose the partner that feels sort of yes, but you're both not really a fuck yes for each other, but you're holding on because at least you have somebody. And a friend of mine once said that it's like, we're afraid of letting go of a relationship because we can't see what is coming. And it's almost like, I would rather have a dysfunctional something than absolute nothing.
yeah.
And there's this idea that it's like, I would rather stay in this dysfunctional relationship because at least I have somebody, or I'd rather stay in this job that it's kind of sucky because at least it pays the rent. But we can't see, and this is what our soul can intuit, is this, that there's so much more, and that is the aliveness that we are feeling. And so I want to move into sharing just a recent experience that we had, because sometimes people are like, well, it's easy when everything is going well and when everything is going right, but what if when things don't go as planned, or when things go wrong, or when shit hits the fan, or whatever, you know, when things like go wrong, to just use a common phrase. And so very recently, it was such a funny story because these are the vibrational fork in the road moments when stuff go off the rails and things don't go according to your pre-planned idea of things. You have a vibrational fork in the road moment where you can either go into contraction and into a story of this shouldn't be happening, or you can move into, okay, I guess something else is happening. I wonder what's next. And so what happened for us, so right now Gabriel and I are here in Sedona, staying with our friends Porangi and Ashley. Porangi also plays at the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat. He's an incredible musician from Brazil. And just about a month ago, we were all together in Spain at the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat. And we had just before that, we had been for a month in Portland, and we had parked our car in Seattle, and we flew from Seattle to Spain, led the event. Then our plan was to go to Italy for a bit, because Italy is nice and Italian food in Italy is better than anywhere in the world. So we're like, let's go to Italy. Then our plan was to fly back to Seattle and then have some time in Portland and then drive down to Sedona. So our plan was still to go to Sedona. Then what happened was in the middle of the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat, okay, let's see, Jules is out, but I think we're still on. Let us know in the chat if you can still hear me at least. So in the middle of the retreat, we're sitting at lunch, and then Gabriel gets a message. Gabriel, my partner, he gets a message on his phone from the friend at whose house in Seattle we had parked the car. And she was like, I'm looking outside, and at the place where your car was before, there is no longer a car. And so basically she's like, I'm sorry guys, but your car has been stolen. And so we had basically left all our things, like all our earthly belongings, in the car and parked the car safely with our friend with the intention to fly back to Seattle and like have these things again. So we had packed a bit more light, and this is what happened. And the cool thing was, though, is that because both me and Gabriel have lived in this space of trusting life and watching the magic of the unfolding for so long, that when we found out that our car was stolen, we were like, wow, that's hilarious. That is so funny. Like, that is amazing. Like, that's a curveball, life. Like, thanks for that. And then the feeling was, so Jules, just super briefly, because you dropped out and you came in, basically in one sentence, what happened was that our car was stolen with all our things inside.
Wow.
This was in the middle of the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat, and our response, so both me and Gabriel, instantly, we were like, okay, cool. Well, I guess we weren't supposed to go to Seattle. I guess we weren't supposed to go to Portland, because even though we had put all our earthly belongings into the car, and the car, you know, we've traveled so many road trips in this car, like it's a really dear car to us, but our response instantly was, okay, well, I guess we weren't supposed to go to Seattle. I wonder what's next. And the feeling was like, okay, cool. So now we're free to go anywhere. And so we're like, okay, we got excited and we're like, okay, we don't have a car anymore. Our luggage is now lighter because life removed all those things from our existence. So we have lighter luggage. We don't have a car. We can go anywhere. And then we were like, okay, well, let's just go earlier to Sedona and have more time in Sedona. That sounds good. That feels good. And then we started looking at flights from Rome to Phoenix to Arizona. And we noticed that every good flight that was just one stopover, all of them had a stopover in Los Angeles. And then we were like, well, how about if rather than having a 3-hour layover in Los Angeles, we do a 1-week layover and just like hang out in Los Angeles and just see what happens. So we did that. We booked our flights to have one layover for a week in Los Angeles. And then instantly invitations and things started to come in. And so people who were like, hey, if you're ever in the Bay Area, connect, because I would love to connect. And so Gabriel ended up recording in essence, in short, Gabriel ended up connecting with the producer, recording things for his next album in Los Angeles the day after we arrived. 2 days after we arrived, Lizzie Jeff, who is an amazing, badass female rapper that we had just seen on stage a month before at the Love Festival, turns out that she has an event in Los Angeles 2 days after we land that we end up going to, connecting with her, and now we're in conversation of collaboration and her coming to play for the next events. Then we're tuning into who else do we want to connect with, and Oren Harris, who is known as you might know him as the flow coach. He's the kind of guy who coaches people to go from making millions into making billions through dropping into deeper presence. And so he's known as the creator of energy mastery and flow mastery, and he's just an incredible human being, one of the clearest people on the planet, in my opinion. And I'm like, I want to connect with Oren. And then for like the 3 days before we landed, I was about to send him a voice message, but then I didn't. And literally when we're in the Uber from the airport for the first time in like months, he reaches out to us and sends us a voice message. And he's like, Ronja and Gabriel, what's up? If you're ever in California, let me know, because I've been feeling you in the field, would love to connect. And we were like, we landed an hour ago. So the next day, we're 3 days later, we get together. We end up filming a bunch of things together, both live and for YouTube. And now he's going to be coming to speak at the next Ecstatic Awakening retreat. And then I also get an email from Layla Martin, who is somebody who's been doing a lot of sacred sexuality work in the mainstream, including like with Esther Perel and Gwyneth Paltrow, who is somebody that Jules has been wanting to get on the Unconditional Life podcast. I get an email from her, and she lives in Los Angeles. This is like all within 1 week, you guys. And then on the very last evening before we go to Sedona, I meet up with Layla Martin. We have a first drop-in for the first time in 2 years. We start talking about different things, and she starts saying how she wants to create this like men's training, and I start connecting her with people that can create that. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm gonna go now and soon facilitate an Unconventional Life Madagascar, and Jules Schroeder is the creator. And then I tell Layla about Jules and about the podcast, and she gets lit up and she's like, oh yeah, connect us. And so now that connection is made. And like 15 other smaller things that I feel is not relevant to share here. But the point is, this all happened. This is all within 6 days. All of this is within 6 days. All of this, like the amount of business creation, the amount of business accelerations, like future millions being made through these connections. And who knows what's going to happen if you zoom out and expand the ripple effects even bigger than this. Do you guys see how this is so much more accelerated and in flow than just like, well, let me just like be on my computer for 15 hours per day and like not talk to anyone? And the key here is that the only thing we did was trusting life and following the aliveness. Our car was stolen. We're like, okay, cool. I guess we're not supposed to be there. I wonder what's next. That feels alive. Yeah, let's be in Los Angeles. We don't know why. We book our tickets. Invitations starts coming in. People start calling us. We start like, things just start happening. And now as a result of this, so many more ripples, including like Lizzie Jeff and Oren Harris coming to Ecstatic Awakening, Layla coming on the podcast with Jules, and a bunch of other things, and the new album, and who knows what else. And this is from following that, tuning into and following the aliveness and feeling into the trust in life and trusting that alignment. And we were like hanging out there with Lizzie Jeff in the middle of the night with all her like rapper friends. And we are like, heck, if it takes a stolen car for us to end up in the right place, then so be it. Like, we really don't care. And that's what happens when you don't get fixated on this is my apartment, or this is my car, or this is the partner, or this is the job. But you're like, oh, there's an infinite number of possibilities here. You see that shift?
Yeah.
I feel like the rant is complete for now, but let me know in the chat if this is resonating, if this is making sense to you, if this is inspiring. And also, Jules, I'm feeling like when I feel into you, I feel a lot of tingling and vibration right now. So,
totally. Well, I think it's like you said, this fork in the road moment, and honestly where our mind goes to of, well, what's the worst that could happen? I would get my car stolen, all of my things while I'm leading this event, versus like, well, what's the best that can happen now? And if I tune into, well, here's what life has presented me, even if it isn't what I would have chosen myself, how do I want to respond and engage? And I love what you said, in 6 days. Like so much shifts. And that's what I love about, the Unconventional Life events, 5 days, literally like an entire future, the same like set of complaints, thought patterns, all the things you're like going through life. And it's like the same machinery is constantly on replay, on repeat, literally gets interrupted. A pattern interrupt happens. Next thing you know, you're in Los Angeles. And now you're connecting with these different people, and it's in a completely different environment. And I think that's what, is important here. We're going to start to wrap up soon. And all of this, we're going to really jam about even more in Madagascar as well. But what does it take to actually move you from comfortable and predictable and certain and actually pattern interrupting your reality? And can you be okay when a pattern interrupt happens that isn't of your choice? And can you also lean in? And I love what you said, feel your way through life. Can you actually allow yourself to feel your way through life? And, and one of the comments here, Danielle as well, like I see what you wrote here, and like, how do I know when to let go of stuff? And I don't want to just, drop everything and have no income and not be able to do what I want. And then, but also, when do I make the leap? And I think there's a timingness of feeling our way through life. And I also find we look to our mind, coming back to what you were saying before, to answer or justify what we know. And then we say, I don't know the answer. But if you really tune in a layer deeper, there is a sense of knowing. And if you can't get a clear read, it just means it's a not right now. That question is important, but it's not relevant yet. So let it accumulate in the collection of important questions that you're asking yourself. But there's no rush to answer every question right now. I'll say this again. There's no rush to answer every question right now. And oftentimes it's being able to have the discernment of, man, I so want to know when I'm going to let go of these freelance clients. And I so want to know when I'm going to like drop all that because it doesn't feel good. And it might not be relevant yet. And then there's also the, I feel fuck yeah energy, and it's totally relevant, and I'm scared to make the leap. And I'm going into my logical brain of all the reasons why. And I know that this is right, and I'm going to feel my way through anyways. And we're going to talk even more like what the advanced principles are for distinguishing this and the nuances in Madagascar. But Danielle, I would start there with asking yourself, is this relevant? And maybe it might not be relevant yet. Maybe it's a very important inquiry. And you'll know when that urgency becomes so much you just cannot. And so, Ronja, anything you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, so Danielle, I love this question because I feel like what you're pointing to here is where so many people are at, where there's like, well, I have this thing that I know that doesn't feel fully aligned, but I feel like if I let go of it, like you say, however, dropping it means no income and not paying for the amazing programs and retreat that contribute to my growth. But then you also say, I feel when I drop it, other doors will open. And so here's the thing, it's like, what is something that you're not seeing yet? What else is possible? Because yes, maybe you drop it and there's no income, or maybe you drop it and you discover that you can make the same amount of income that you normally make on your 8 hours a day job in 10 minutes per day or 1 hour per day. And so one really simple example, so Mike Visteel, who is somebody that I actually got connected through via Trinidad that I met at Unconditional Life Bali, and then she introduced me to Mike, and now he's also part of the Ecstatic Awakening crew. But one of the things that he says, you can go on his YouTube channel, and he has so many videos where it's like how to make $1,000 per day from anywhere in the world, how to make $300 per day in 10 minutes per day. And those videos are not, sometimes they're a bit like, you'd be like, oh, whatever, it's clickbait. But actually, if you watch them, he actually lays out, and if you message me on Facebook, I can send you a specific video where he lays out how to make like $1,000 or $100 per day, literally spending pretty much somewhere between 10 minutes and 1 hour doing one specific thing that's like helping yoga businesses through Facebook ads. I could just send you the video because he explains it. But my point is that there are ways, like if you just go on YouTube and you'd be like, how to ... there are ways to create a full-time income to support your dream project in something that would take you maybe 1 hour per day. Like there are other ways. And so if you feel like dropping your current job means no income, I would say not necessarily. Like there are other ways. And then secondly, in terms of the doors opening, totally, because when you drop something, you get access to, life opens up a new reality for you. And there's something also here, because in the description for this live call today, there are some bullet points where it's like, in today's call, we're going to cover this. And there was one more thing that I want to touch upon, which is debunking the myth of the worst thing that can happen. And it's kind of funny creating these descriptions, by the way, because when Jules and I drop in, it's like whatever comes through is going to come through. But we also need to have a description so that you're like, that sounds good, I want to be there, you know? and so the debunking the myth of the worst thing that can happen, because we hear this so much from people, and it's so beautiful and so innocent, because there's this feeling of like, well, what if I go for this and then I can't pay rent? Or what if I go for this and then this happens? And there's this idea and this myth that the worst thing that can happen or misunderstanding rather, that the worst thing that can happen is that you can't pay rent. So first of all, if you just look at that, it's like, okay, so what if you can't pay rent for a bit, but then you stay with a friend, or you couch surf, or you go woofing, like where you work on a farm and you get food and accommodation and work for a few hours per day and have Wi-Fi connection, you meet amazing people from all over the world, or you go and volunteer somewhere and you meet amazing people that then lead you on something, whatever. Like maybe you can't pay rent for 3 months, maybe you stay with a friend, maybe whatever, you'll be fine, you know? But then even just on the, like, to really bring it down to the depth of the truth of the matter, is that the worst thing that can happen is not that you can't pay rent. The worst thing that can happen is that you pay rent every month for the rest of your life, doing something that is not a fuck yes, doing something that is like a slow death, but you're holding on to it because at least it's known. And you pay rent every month for the rest of your life until you come to the end of your life and you're like, fuck, I didn't do it. Now that's the worst thing that can happen, in my opinion, and in how I see it.
Yeah. So good. I love this whole conversation of it, and I think there's so much more we can keep chatting about. But I want to transition here to talk a little bit about what is next in the realm of Madagascar. So, Ronja, why don't you tell us about how you think about Unconventional Life Madagascar? You came to Bali, you and Gabriel attended, then you loved it so much. You came to Morocco in May, led this incredible breath work about downloading your entire business plan and such, like through breath work and all these other things. And now you've said yes to Madagascar. And so what is the fuck yeah for you about Madagascar? And what should people know? What is this whole Unconventional Life event business, in your words?
God, I feel so much energy and vibration and aliveness. I almost have like a smiling cramp in my cheeks because there's so much coming through here, but also a deep calm and knowing. Madagascar and unconventional life is a vortex for synchronicities. It's a place where people come together from all over the world. These are the biggest change makers, creators, entrepreneurs, just epic people you'll ever meet, where people just meet each other and then creations happen. Like this is one of those shortcut spaces where you could do the 10-year thing where you're just alone with your computer, or you can come to Unconventional Life and just get into this field of creators. And maybe it's a business creation that happens right then and there, or maybe you just get 40 new friends or 5 new really close friends, where you begin to live in a new realm, in a new existence, in a new life of possibilities and creativity. And so it's just this space of going from, if you have the sense of, if you have any sense of, this is who I am, these are my possibilities, this is my projected timeline for what I see as possible. When you come to Unconventional Life, what happens is that whole thing just gets blown out of the waters. It just gets dissolved, and you're like, whoa, there's so much more that's possible for me here that's then I could see from before. You literally upgrade into a new existence, into a new reality, including all the people who are already, either they're making it happen or they're like you and they're like, I'm starting this, but let's do this together. And then with Madagascar, because the thing is, like, a couple of years ago, I was at the IMAX cinema in London, and I was watching this 3D that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. Maybe I should just Google it, but I was watching this documentary from the lemurs in Madagascar, not the cartoon, but like a 3D live documentary from lemurs in Madagascar. It was narrated by Morgan Freeman. And I saw this, and I was like, saw these lemurs jumping, and I was like, God, I need to go to Madagascar sometime in my life and like hang out with lemurs live. Like, I cannot leave this planet before I've done that. That was like on the bucket list in that moment. I was like, I need to do this. And so when Jules was like, first of all, I had been to Unconventional Life Bali, loved it. Unconventional Life Morocco, loved it, and super honored to have been in the space of facilitating. And then when she's like, Madagascar, I'm like, yes, Yes, just such incredible yes for being on that island. And then also what I feel so inspired to share, and again from a place of deep excitement as well as deep calm and deep presence, because it's really it's the quality of what Oren Harris calls slowing down to speed up, where you drop so deep into the moment that you get access to the fullness possibilities. It's not like, how can I go faster in a rushed way, but it's dropping deeply in to the moment, and then things just come to you. And this is what we'll be exploring in Madagascar as well, through a specific kind of breath work and specific meditations, where as a creator, you get access to the 98%, you get access to the 10,000%, the million percent of what is possible when you tune into infinite intelligence. And there's one more thing that I want to offer you right now, for all of you who are tuning in right now, is really the space of that you already know. And I'm going to quote Jules here, because the other day I was watching Jules, forget which one of the other talks in the speaker series it was, but you were saying something about intuition. And you said that if you feel like you're meant to be there, you are. If you feel like you're meant to be there, you are. And so this is not to say that you should do a certain thing or not, but it is to say that you already know, that your intuition already knows. And this goes for both coming to Madagascar, as well as just if you take this on as a way of living, where you trust that intuition and the aliveness, even when your mind doesn't know why, because again, your mind has access to the past. It cannot perceive the infinite possibilities that your soul or your higher self is intuiting. But what you can do is to feel into where the aliveness is and begin to trust that and act on this. And then when you do this, you will notice how life begins to unfold, and you look back and you were like, oh, that's why. But the offering here is that you already know. And feeling into where the fuck yes is, and trusting and following that. And that is how you move into this space of living, to tie it full circle, in connected living, unconditional trust in life, and really living your adventure for this lifetime.
Yes, so much yes to that. And our knowing comes through in different ways. Sometimes it's a loud current that smacks you in the face and you're like, oh my God, I know. And sometimes it's a flicker and it's like a little tingle. It's like a twinge. You're like, ooh, something's like pinging my curiosity. And so letting whatever form it comes through to honor that. And we're going to put the application link. So Unconventional Life is a apply to attend event. And as Ronja said earlier, we really carry on this mutual fuck yeah, and actually speak to every person that comes, because the energetic integrity doesn't just matter, it's a requirement for how we actually do this. If you imagine this conversation and people coming from all over the world with the same degree of intentionality, discernment, aliveness, and readiness for 5 days, you want to talk about syncing up quantum field, that is what is literally the foundation, the baseline for this magic. And so we'll put the link here on unconventionallifeshow.com/Madagascar in just a moment. But maybe your first knowing is like, there's something. And you go to this link and you put in the application and you're like, I don't even know. Next thing you know, you're on a call with me and you're like, I don't even know. But you're feeling your way through, like this gets to be an opportunity, if that aliveness is here in whichever form, for you to practice it. What do you got? What are you holding over there?
Actually, there are no words. I just feel grateful and inspired. And also the sense of the knowing. Oh, okay, this is coming through. The simultaneous knowing and not knowing at the same time. In the sense that I have no idea about the specifics of, like, I'm not psychic enough yet to see that clearly into the future, where it's like, I don't know what the conversations are going to happen. I don't know who I'm meant to meet in that event. I don't know exactly who is meant to come together, start a business, fall in love, whatever that is. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. What I do know is the intuitive guidance and the expansion that I feel when I tune into being there together with all of us, like landing. We just booked our flight tickets to Madagascar, and we're feeling the aliveness of like, okay, the helicopter ride and the feeling of diving into the ocean, and the feeling of on day one when we were like, okay, we're all here together, and just looking around and seeing who's there. I can already feel the sense of that. The first moment when Jules grabs the mic and you're like, okay, we're all here, let's do this, or whatever version of, I don't know exactly what the program is, but you know what I mean, like the moment when we're like, okay, we're all here. I can already feel right now viscerally the frequency and the vibration and the experience of being there. And that is this knowing and the fuck yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
Absolutely. So, for you, if you feel like this year has been a year of planting roots, almost going inward and really reflecting, and you can feel the current as we round into 2020 coming right now, like you're clear, there's something potent that you're holding. Maybe people out in your life don't fully get it. Maybe you always find yourself having to explain yourself to people, or maybe, you're having conversations like this gets to be the space. That energy is real. We are at a pivotal moment where it is fundamental, foundational for us to step out of our comfy rooms, our comfy screens, of our comfy life, and actually interrupt such that we can come together and really transcend, not only for ourselves, for the people we're meant to impact, and for the planet. The planet is literally screaming for us to show up for her and for ourselves. And I feel like Madagascar, literally on this island, is this launch pad. And so 5 days, we're going to be 44 of us coming in, helicoptering to this island. We will have the entire island, lemurs everywhere, speedboats, people, friends, surprises, and all the other things. But most importantly, it really feels like the space for us to launch. So if you're ready to launch, go ahead and check out the link. And if you find yourself in a transition right now, or you are at the precipice of a transition, one thing I know to be true about myself is that I am a magnet. I am the space for those in a transition. And so consider this not an accidental encounter, that we have now been spending the last hour and a half or so together, and really just the beginning. And so go ahead and check out the link for Madagascar. We are in our last round of accepting people in with such these few spots, and really allow all of the things that we've shared today on the live stream, whether you're in Madagascar with us or not, to be your application, your practice ground to living a connected, inspired, and radically alive life. Because in the realm of choice, why wouldn't you? Like, what's the worst that could happen? You pay your rent successfully every day, like you said, for the rest of, every month for the rest of your life. And then you look back and you say, what if I could? That you think about trips like Madagascar, and maybe you're like, it's so far, I could never afford it, I don't have the time, I don't have whatever. But what would it be like to actually interrogate, to look in that reality and be like, well, why wouldn't you? What's the worst that could happen? Is that you stay in the certainty. And so whether it's with this or with something else, give yourself the gift, the permission, per my mission, to play and to shift, because we need more of us alive. And that is why we are all being bound and connected together. It is important and relevant, and it's here, and let's enjoy it. So.
Thank you, Jules. I feel so grateful for you holding this space, for creating this space where we can all come together and connect in this way. Everyone who is here, both on Zoom as well as Facebook Live, as well as in the future now, maybe watching the replay of this, thank you all so much for being on this crazy ride through life with us. And can't wait to see you in Madagascar. And if you're on this call and this is the moment where maybe you've been feeling it for a while, maybe you just heard about it now, but it would be super fun as well if when we are together in Madagascar, just come up and let us know, like, hey, I was on that call and that was the moment that I knew, or that was the moment that I decided to at least check it out, and then I knew. It would be really fun to just have this little future ping into that future now of like, yeah, that was the moment, and now here we are in Madagascar together. And feel free to let us know, because that's fun to know as well.
Absolutely. And make sure to put this live stream, when you fill out your application, on there. We have a ton of applications we get. So to fast track you, let us know you found it through here, and we'll go from there. So, all right, everyone, lots of love to you all. Ronja, so good to jam with you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.